Stokes, friend of the show, the development director for the Show Me Institute. Good morning, David Stokes.
Good morning, McGraw. Good morning, Kelly.
Hi, David.
What are we talking about today?
Well, some North County municipalities, according to a Post-Dispatch article over the weekend, have expressed a great deal of disappointment over the new regulations that Senate Bill 5, which is the bill limiting how much money they can raise by tickets.
Yes.
Some of the other parts of that bill, primarily the fact that it's requiring that police departments in St. Louis County become accredited by national law enforcement standards.
Wait a minute. Now we want police departments to be accredited?
Right.
Really?
It's actually fairly reasonable. and here's the kicker. They have 6 years to comply.
Well, in essence, it takes 6 years of data and training to get your police department accredited in the first place. So even if you started today, it isn't just fill out the paperwork. It's a long, involved process. As well it should be.
Right, and the police chief of Chesterfield was at this municipal league meeting where a number of North County and probably other municipalities as well, but in the Post-Dispatch it was focused on the North County municipalities. They were complaining, and the police chief of Chesterfield was saying, it's really not a bad thing to get accredited. You should perhaps embrace it and do your best, and we'll see if that happens. The fact is that in this article, and I encourage people to check it out at stltoday.com, that they're saying that this law, Senate Bill 5, is designed to destroy North County municipalities, and there's a number of. That's a direct quote from the article. And, of course, it's infuriating because here is a law designed to protect the very people that these cities and many other cities throughout the state have been victimizing in order to fund their cities through abusive traffic fines and much more. And to hear the elected officials who are there purportedly to protect or to serve those people, objecting to law is infuriating, especially when they do it so inaccurately.
Well, I will say this, David Stokes, development director of the Show Me Institute, that this law, in a sense, was passed to sort of do away with or to make it harder for some of these communities to do what they're doing. And if they go away, so be it. I would think that that's a good thing because many of these towns don't need to exist.
You're right. And I think one of the nice things about Senate Bill 5 is that if they don't live up to the new standards, these cities, it simply puts a disincorporation vote on the ballot. So it's up to the people of those cities to decide. And there's so many points to respond to in this article, mostly that if the cities are not able to meet the standards for having their own police department, it's a very simple thing to contract with St. Louis County or a larger neighboring municipality to patrol your streets, and you can save money doing that. That happens frequently in St. Louis County, and it should happen more. It should happen more statewide. The idea that you're dramatically ruining a small town if they have to get rid of their 6-person police department.
Right.
I mean, it's not an accurate statement. You can still have a town patrolled by another municipality or the county, and you'll get better policing for less money. Well,
and every report, whether it's the Ferguson Commission, whether it's the people who were protesting or complaining about the police conduct, if there was an accredited police department there with a 21st century trained police department, guess what? Many of those problems would go away because you'd have a professional police department there.
I agree. Now, to be clear, I think in Ferguson and St. Louis County, they are fully accredited police departments. So I could be wrong about Ferguson.
Okay, well,
but the key is, in the long run, one of the many reasons for all the unrest over the past year is that people don't trust their local police departments in St. Louis County, in my opinion, because many of the particularly small ones are not well run, and they are out there. They've been out there, and thankfully it's finally changing. Their main role is not to serve and protect. Their main role, as the letter from the mayor of Edmundson to his own police officer said, your job is to write tickets to fund this city. Right. And if you don't write enough tickets, you won't get your pay raises, or we'll lay you off and find somebody who will.
Right.
So when you have police officers who've been out there not doing the main role of policing, but funding their own local municipalities, that sows a lot of discord and distrust between the people and the police, and it's great that we're finally trying to address that.
Let me play devil's advocate just for a moment here, because living in the city for a long time, and now moving out to St. Charles and living in Cottleville, where the biggest complaint or the biggest issue the Cotterville police have is a cat up in a tree, because there's just no crime in Cotterville. And the police drive through the neighborhood, and you stop and you say hi. And we had a block party, and they all came over and said hi. And you see them on the street, you stop. I mean, it's like Goober and Andy from Mayberry. And I kind of like having a Cotterville Police Department because I know the guys and so on and so forth. But if they were to be taken over by St. Louis County or St. Charles County Police, and I wouldn't know them, in a sense, I would feel, whoa, wait, maybe I'm losing some of that small town flavor.
And here's the question. Here's one of the key factors to how are you paying for those police? If you're paying for it in Cottleville primarily through your own city's property taxes and your own city sales taxes, and you can afford a local police department, that's fine. Then keep your local Cottleville Police Department. If you're doing everything in your city that you can't afford many basic city services, but you do because your police are out writing tickets to fund all of government.
Right.
And you're abusing your residents, the neighboring residents, and doing many other things, I think, improperly, then you need to get rid of your local police department. Then you need to make a lot of changes to your city, not just the police. And if you're going to try to address the new law like Edmundson is, with doubling your commercial property tax rate while leaving the residential rate at 0, which is now you're not sticking it to the people on I-70 as much. You're sticking it to the hotels and rental car companies in your place, in your city, designed to let the residents of your own city not have to pay for the services they're getting. Well, that's the wrong way to go about it. And for these cities that have for decades been exporting the cost of their own city to other people, often unjustifiably, I hope those are the cities that are forced to change. And if it means disincorporation, well, then so be it.
We should say that Edmundson has 6 businesses.
Right, and lucky for Edmundson for this plan they have to put it on the ballot in November to double the commercial rate. Some of those businesses are very large airport hotels.
Right.
So they can raise a lot of money doing this. And the residents, unlike maybe in Brentwood, where you raise your taxes and people think about it. It's Carl's. I don't want to drive Carl's out of business. These are just airport businesses. They don't serve the residents per se. What they're doing in Edmundson is terrible public policy, and I fear it's going to be repeated in other cities throughout the county as, again, politicians refuse to have their own residents pay for their own city.
David Stokes with us, Show Me Institute Development Director. When can we read you? When can we see you?
Got a lot of information on the subject at showmeinstitute.org, and I got to throw some shout-outs to Addie, who's a dedicated listener, to Shipley and Nick, and to the guys at Bavarian Motors on Olive, who are big fans of the show in this segment.
It's like Romper Room. I see you, Susan, and Joey, and Bobby.
Well, I've had shout-outs I've been meaning to do for months, and I finally remembered to do it.
David Stokes, have a good week.
Thanks, McGraw. Thanks, Kelly.
8:46 here, Big 550, KT.